You're gonna disagree with this, but here's how I would build a $24,000 watch collection. You may also ask, wouldn't a round number like $25,000 make more sense? Yes, but we're Chrono24, and it's called branding. Okay, anyways, if you click on the Chrono24 magazine in the top bar of the homepage, you can see how several other colleagues of mine approach the same problem. Sebastian Spork is complicated with two affordable chronographs from Hamilton and Nevada Grinchen, an affordable Squale GMT, and a not so affordable Rolex that also functions as a GMT. And for the nerds, he finishes with a Heuer Ottavia 2446C. That's the best of both worlds. Donato Emilio Andreoli starts off strong with a Rolex Datejust 41, then adds a Tudor Black Bay 54, and finishes with the Omega Speedmaster. It's heavy on the icons, but he's got all his bases covered. Irishman Aaron Voiles chooses 4 watches with a surprise at the end. The Tudor Black Bay 58, solid, that's not a surprise. The Rolex Oyster Perpetual 41 in a funky color is a strong move. He goes vintage with a 1990s IWC chronograph, and he gets cheeky at the end with this 1987 Omega Art Collection in ceramic for just $800. I didn't even know that watch existed. Pascal, who's been in more than a few of these videos on this channel, chose a two-tone Santos 2961. He keeps it safe with an Omega Speedmaster and a Black Bay 54. Then he adds a Grand Seiko Elegance SBGW 283 and ends with a sleeper hit, Vacheron Constantin Patrimony. Lastly, George starts big with the Rolex Sea Dweller 16600. Then he's got the Tudor Black Bay Pro for a GMT, the Zenith Chronomaster Revival A3A4 for a chronograph, and ends with an all-arounder, the Rolex Datejust 1601. Now it's my turn. $24,000 is a healthy but not too unrealistic budget to work with. It's easy for impulses to add up in this hobby, so a roadmap can be quite helpful. Vintage watch dealer Eric Wind recommended it as one of his top tips for collectors. That brings us to the strategy portion for building this hypothetical, or maybe not so hypothetical, watch collection. Most people who are lucky enough to not be obsessed with watches would probably think $24,000, just buy the best watch you can and be done with it. How many do you need anyways? That is a rational way to approach it, but watch enthusiasts are not rational people. I mean, I'm wearing a watch from the 1940s, for God's sake. If you were to take this one and done strategy, you could certainly go for a Rolex Daytona, or a Patek Philippe Calatrava, or a Vacheron Overseas, and just be done with it. For a one watch collection, if you want to call it a collection, I do maybe a Longa 1 or maybe a really good 5513 Submariner. But I don't think I could ever own just one watch. Where's the fun in that? My colleagues, for example, chose 3, 4, or 5 watches. So here's a strategy that you can use as well. Figure out a personal cost per wear ratio and budget a proportional amount for each category. For example, if you only wear a dress watch on occasion, don't blow your entire 24K budget on a rare Cartier. Simple enough, right? Personally, I do 40% of the budget for a daily driver, 40% for a dressy watch, which is a lot, I know, and the last 20% for a no-frills sport watch. Speaking of which, let's start with the sport watch. I don't need much for a beater, and you've got a lot of value here given the build quality of the Tudor Black Bay 54. Already a popular choice among my colleagues for good reason. Starting around 3.5, let's call it 4,000, you'll get a watch that will outlive you, and it'll only look better the more beat up it gets. It also captures that vintage look and feel without having to worry about the potential fragility of vintage watches. I could shave off a bit of the budget and go for a Seiko Diver or a Datsa or even an Aquastar for the fun factor. Even a G-Shock would be acceptable here. Actually, how funny would that be? Spending $23,900 on a Calatrava and the final $100 on a Casio. Okay, but realistically, we're one watch in with $4,000 spent. Next, the daily driver. And I'll say this, the worst part about my job is that every so often I have to shout out a watch that I'm planning on buying. I'd prefer to keep this a secret, but I've really been loving the first generation Vacheron Overseas lately, specifically the reference 42042. It's 37 millimeters, but wears more like a 39. I'm undecided on dial colors, but the specs here are solid. It's only about 8.5 millimeters thick, and it has 150 meters of water resistance, which is 3 times more than the Royal Oak and 5 times more than the Nautilus. You've got amazing details on the bezel and the bracelet. And just look at all the edges and finishing that they've squeezed into this bracelet. It's even black polished on the underside. Price-wise, you can find these for around $10K, which is obviously much, much less than, say, Royal Oak. In this same price range with the same look and feel, you could also consider an Otto Finissimo, but it's too large for most wrists. You could do the Cartier Santos 2319. There are only about 2,000 of these floating around, but there's really no water resistance. And of course, there's the Rolex Explorer, which is one of the best ready-for-anything watches in the industry. But I think the Vacheron has a more distinctive personality, and I'm not naturally a Rolex kind of guy. 4K on the Tudor, 10K on the Vacheron, we got 10K left to spend, and I'm gonna go all in on a dress watch that's so much more. It's a little crazy, but I think I would get a lot of wear out of a perpetual calendar. Apparently, Thierry Stern of Patek Philippe wears a 3940 perpetual calendar as his daily watch, so why can't you and I? The only tricky part is finding a perpetual calendar for $10,000. That's where IWC comes in. The brand has quite a few perpetual calendars at surprising deals, and they've made a name for themselves within this complication over the last few decades. The one I have my eye on is the IWC Romana perpetual calendar. When it debuted in 1994, it was the slimmest perpetual movement at only 3.1 millimeters thick. That's it. The watch measures 36 millimeters in diameter by only 6 millimeters in total height. It's the smallest, thinnest, and by far the most complicated watch on my list. Platinum would be ideal, but yellow gold is easier to find and easier to afford. IWC perpetual calendars are one of the best deals in watches, period. So I knew it would be a great choice for this hypothetical little game, especially since the repair costs are also hypothetical. So there's my personal list. BB54, overseas, and a QP, baby. By the time this video comes out, I'll probably have changed my mind 3 or 4 times already, but I'm feeling pretty good at the moment. Now you know what I'm gonna say next. It's your turn. 24K budget, what are you getting? Quite a few of you, I'm sure, already have a 24K plus collection, so let me know what you chose or what you'd choose if you could do it over again. I'm Thomas Hendricks with Chrono24. It's been a lot of fun. We'll see you next time.